Hi there, my name is Abraham, and I'm going to be doing week number 5 technical interview questions. So let's go ahead and get started. My video is a little weird because I'm not actually sitting at my desk. I'm actually sitting in the living room. So I've got some notes that I've taken for these interview questions. So basically, let's go ahead and get started. I know there's a time limit. So the first question is, if I can get my notes correctly here. Question number 1. I'm going to be asked a question from the interviewer, and this is a question. When would you choose an embedded database like Seek SQLite over a client server database like PostgreSQL? So the answer that I would probably give is, first of all, for CQLite, CQ, just what it sounds like, SQLite is going to be a lighter program to help queries that are more simpler. The advantages of this is that there is a zero setup and zero development friction. So you don't have to be managing users. You don't have to have permissions to go into certain, um, the certain databases or permission to update databases or X, Y, and Z. Um, It's also excellent for automated testing because it can run entirely in memory. So the advantage is it sounds as though the um, the SQLite is probably a more choice for maybe a smaller database that doesn't have as many complexity versus like I never can pronounce this right. PostgreSQL Jesus. Is I guess a little bit more complex. So that's my answer for question number 1. That's my answer. Let's just move on. All right, question number 2, which is a little bit more easier for me to answer because there's not so many like, I don't know, things. Part of the question number 1. Why would you use PostgreSQL? That name is annoying to me. PostgreSQL Query Planner. Choose the SQL scan even if a B tree index exists. So the answer for this is basically sequential scan is a very like time consuming action. It basically starts from the top of the database to the other. The question is um, choose a SQL scan even if a B tree index exists. So basically the answer is low sensitivity, high result set. If the query returns a large portion of the table, typically more than 5% to 10% of total rows, the planner often switches to a sequential scan. So once again, sequential scan is a scan from beginning to end. Every bit of database, every bit of data in every column and every row. Um, One of the problems with this is that it could just really it could really slow down the processing because it's going through every category. So this is not a good thing to have. Um, B tree index is a little bit more fine-tuned where it can get through all of that. But once again, the B tree index is, I think, more suitable for more complex databases that have way more data. That's something that's very simple. So that would be my answer to question number 2. Okay, going on. Question number 3. Okay, and this is the last question. What does it mean when you see a sequential scan in your query plan? And why is it usually a red flag for performance? So this is an easier question to answer because it doesn't have so many moving parts. So basically, once again, a sequential scan is a scan that starts from the top and it goes through all of um, every module, meaning every row, every column goes from A to Z, back and forth, back and forth. So if you have large amounts of tables with large amounts of data, It's going to go through all of that and it's going to slow down your server and it's going to slow down the actual response to the user. So that would be a red flag. Um, Basically scalability. So once again, scaling all of that data, uh, the more that you obtain and put into table bases, the more that if you just decide to use a sequential scan, you're just asking for slow production and just slow production. Next one is let's see here. When is it not red flag? So when is it not a red flag is when it's like small tables. So small tables with like, small tables with very small rows of data. That's considered something that is more safe for a sequential scan. Um, Returning, okay, this is another thing too that I saw that returning most of the data. So that's not a red flag. So if you like run a query on a sequential scan like command and you get like 5 to 10% of your data back, then that's not a red flag. So that's a good thing. Okay. I think we're done here for this. This may not have been one of my more professional tapes or videos, but I think that I answered the questions as truthfully and honestly and as best as I could. All right, so this ends this video. Thank you for your time.